Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Folks, today is Friday, May 22nd, 2026. Coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Monday marks the 6th anniversary of the murder of George Floyd. Congressman Glen Ivey will join us to talk about him reintroducing the George Floyd Policing Act. Also on today's show, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman-Schultz coming under fire from Black Democrats in Florida when she files to run in a seat that they say African Americans should be running in. Also, we'll hear from Congressman Emanuel Cleaver about having his seat in Missouri being gerrymandered by Republicans. Congressman Jim Clyburn joins us to talk about South Carolina trying to do the exact same thing to him and his message for 18 to 39-year-old voters. We'll also talk to Xavier Becerra, who's running for governor of California, plus Texas State Representative James Talarico running for the United States Senate in Texas. Jam-packed show. It's time to... Plus, also, we mourn the loss of Rob Bass, who passed away today at the age of 59. Folks, it's time to bring the funk. I'm Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
Whatever the piss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the fine. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Folks, Monday will be the 6th anniversary since George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. Congressman Glen Ivey is reintroducing the George Floyd Justice Policing Act. He joins us right now. I'm glad to have you on the show, Congressman Ivey. Bottom line is, listen, it passed the House. When Democrats had control of the House, it died in the Senate. You're reintroducing it, but Republicans control the House and the Senate. Why?
Well, we want to keep pushing it. I think it's needed now more than ever. Certainly the issues that led to George Floyd's death are still here. And anybody who was watching what ICE was doing in Minneapolis saw that it's still alive and doing horrible things there as well. I've been doing a tour today with Keith Ellison, the Attorney General of Minnesota. They moved forward with one of the cases there in Minnesota already, but there's still going to be challenges moving forward in federal courts that states will have to bring state charges and move forward there. I think we need to address these concerns and the laws that, as it was passed, in the previous two Congresses, those laws are needed now more than ever.
Plus, you also have conservatives who want Derek Chauvin to be pardoned after being convicted on the federal level. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the good things about moving forward at the state level, which I think is what's going to have to happen in Minnesota, is that if they get convicted, even if it's moved to federal court, it'll still be under state law. So Trump won't be able to give away one of those pardons like he did with the January 6th insurrectionists. They'll have to serve out the sentence, just like Chauvin's going to have to do. So I think it's important to make sure we move forward. Big point to make sure we remember, though, with respect to what's going on in Minnesota. The Department of Justice has been withholding the evidence in the shootings of Good and Preddy. I led a letter with 57 other members of Congress pushing for the Department of Justice to release that evidence so they can share it and get access to it. Keith Ellison and the DA in one of the neighboring counties was able to move forward in a different case, but not in these two so far. So they need to turn the evidence over and get out of the way if they're not going to do something themselves.
Is this also to further force the Republicans to be on record in their opposition to this?
Yeah, I think it's important to make sure that they are continuing to be pressed on these issues, especially, in the version of it now that's come forward with the ICE excessive force cases. And the Border Patrol has been terrible, too. And so, I think for a lot of Americans, they saw, Derek Chauvin get convicted and the like. But, you had an unarmed white woman get shot in the face in Minneapolis. And then to the extent you saw the video with respect to the Preddy killing, that's a white man who'd been disarmed, forced to the ground, and he was shot 10 times. I think that for a lot of white Americans, that was an eye-opener. And so, let's make sure the Republicans are on record with respect to this and the position they're taking here, but also across the board with ICE, which also needs a total revamp, by the way. We need to keep pushing on that, too.
Are you hopeful that this will come up before the November of the election?
The speaker's going to try and block it for sure. They've been trying to block many things. The War Powers Act they had to take down because they were afraid to lose that yesterday. So we'll keep pushing on that front. And there's this something called a discharge petition where if you get a majority of members of the House, you can bring it to the floor even if the speaker's trying to block it. That's how we got the Epstein files legislation that forced the release there, or at least forced the beginning of the release of those documents because they're still dragging their feet there. But, we're going to use every opportunity, every tool, and every platform that we can to move this forward and keep fighting this fight because it hasn't gone away. It's still a huge problem here in the United States, across the country, and we're going to make sure we keep it on the front burner.
Well, and obviously the issue that you have here is that you will need some Republicans to join you on the discharge petition.
Yeah, absolutely. And, what's going to happen, I think, is, Trump's been trying to hold the Republicans and make them toe the line, but they're starting to read the writing on the wall. His numbers are in the tank, 50 to 60 points underwater for some of these polls that I've seen, including Fox polls. And so the Republicans that were running for re-election, and they're all running for re-election in the House, are going to have to make a decision about whether they're going to step away from Trump and distance themselves from what he's been doing, or if they're going to stay with him and go down. Either way, I think it's going to be beneficial. We'd like to get them to move now, not just on this issue, but on other affordability issues, like getting us out of the war, for example, start bringing gas prices down, ending those tariffs so grocery prices will go down. We're going to force them to work on those too, healthcare coverage and the like. But we'll keep pushing, and we'll get it now or later. But sooner or later, it's going to have to happen.
Absolutely. All right, then, Congressman Glen Ivey, certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Look at my panel. Joining us right now, Candace Kelly, legal analyst and host Takeaway with Candace Kelly, South Orange, New Jersey. Matt Manning, civil rights attorney out of Corpus Christi. Michael Imhotep, host African History Network show out of Detroit. Candace, I'll start with you. Look, the reality is Republicans they don't care about this issue. They don't care about, they've been lifting up Derek Chauvin. But I do think it's important to press to keep them on the defense and to force them to be on the record on these issues.
Yeah, I think ultimately what we're looking at is making sure that this is kept alive so that people just don't forget about it, because it is easily forgotten. As you said, the Republicans are not thinking about it, but they're going to have to get over this qualified immunity. They're going to have to get over this whole idea of what happens to civil rights cases. And that's still going to be the biggest block in all of this. Ultimately, this is a federal issue in terms of this particular law. And what's important to really think about is what's going on in the states, what's going on when it comes to no-knock warrants. There has been some progress. A lot of that has been rolled back, but still, we are looking at what the states have and the power that they have and what they can carry out. So two different things that we're looking at, federal and state level, slightly more progress on the state level, but at least, as you said, we are keeping this idea alive that things are not good on the streets for African Americans, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman. Coupled with that, DE rights kind of rolled back. All of this is something that Trump has in his executive orders taken away. So a lot to look at, but certainly not a lot of progress that we're going to see anytime soon.
And of course, it's not like Trump gives a damn. He wants to offer immunity to any cop. And so I don't see any movement whatsoever on this, Matt.
I see that there's a glaring contradiction time you try to create a nearly $2 billion weaponization fund for the people who are, I guess, your sycophants who have allegedly been, targeted by federal law enforcement. I mean, that's the thing that I think is so dishonest intellectually that you see from the Republicans and from Mr. Trump in particular, is where they want to be pro-law enforcement, they think they're victims of law enforcement. But we're demonstrated evidence that there's a certain class of people who are victims of law enforcement, and you do nothing to remedy that, then it's clear that you don't care about those people. And that's what this shows, especially because there are places like Colorado that has actually legislated where it's gotten rid of qualified immunity. Obviously, as Candace said, this is a federal law, not a state law. But the point is there is a precedent for it and necessity for it, because we obviously have seen that there have been a myriad and there's been enough, situations where we need to really revisit this issue. So I think you're right. I don't think the Republicans are going to get behind it, but I think it's intellectually dishonest when they're talking about the same things fund that he's trying to create.
Michael?
Not in this form here. What I would do, and we've had this conversation here before on the show, Roland, and with the killing of Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good, this gives more fuel to the fire. Personally, I would rename the bill the Law and Order, Justice and Policing Act, and tell Republicans, okay, so you want law and order? Okay. Here's the Law and Order, Justice and Policing Act. And also, I would bring in the Fraternal Order Police. Why? Because the Fraternal Order Police supported the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And they said that it protected police officers, but it also protected citizens. And I would cite the evidence from the database called Fatal Force from the Washington Post that shows each year approximately 50% of the people shot and killed by police are white people. Okay, so I say, okay, I would bring in white crying mothers whose loved ones were shot and killed by police, whether they were armed or unarmed. I would have a massive force behind this. And even if you got to break this bill up into, say, 2 or 3 bills, I would take that approach. Yes, African Americans are disproportionately shot and killed unarmed, but the data is in your favor. And it shows 50% of the people shot and killed are white people. So I would hit this from different sides and try to force this through and get Republicans on record and say you're gonna vote against the Fraternal Order Police and the International Association of Police Chiefs, who both signed onto this bill, and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, we'll certainly see. Quick break. We come back. We'll talk about Alabama being in court, trying to defend their congressional maps. We'll talk about that. Also, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz ticking off black Democrats after she announced today she's running in a congressional district and not the one that she previously represented after the maps there were changed. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Been trying to erase black political power since Reconstruction. Now the Supreme Court is helping them finish the job. First came Shelby County versus Holder in 2013, the ruling that gutted the Voting Rights Act. Then came Brnovich in 2021, another ruling, another piece torn away. Now comes Calais, the case civil rights leaders warned could cripple the last major federal protection against racial vote dilution. And within days, Tennessee eliminated its only majority black congressional district. Louisiana. South Carolina, Alabama. The same strategy is spreading across the South. The old Jim Crow used poll taxes and literacy tests. The new Jim Crow uses gerrymandered maps, voter roll purges, polling place closures, and court rulings that make black communities politically invisible. 1965 was Freedom Summer. This is Freedom Summer 2.0, because they are still trying to erase black political power, and we will not bow.
Hey everybody, I'm T.D. Jakes, and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
Alabama back in federal court after Republicans moved to revive a congressional map, the same map that judges had already ruled unconstitutional for discriminating against black voters. A three-judge panel heard arguments today based on the long-running Allen versus Milligan case. The judges will decide whether the state can move forward with special congressional primaries under those disputed district lines come this August. The hearing comes after the Supreme Court's decision in the Louisiana versus Calais case, which completely gutted the Voting Rights Act protections in, first of all, in Segment 4. Now, civil rights groups are speaking up about the congressional map that Alabama federal courts use to weaken black voting power. The plaintiffs are asking judges to keep the current court-approved map and protect the votes already cast in this year's election. That map is for 2 black members of Congress. That current map, again, allows Alabama to elect Congresswoman Terry Sewell, Congressman Shamari Figures. Of course, 2 seats for the first time in history. Republicans want to go back to 1, but they really want to wipe out even Congresswoman Terry Sewell's district. I was communicating with, in this one chat with Evan Milligan, who is, of course, the Milligan in that case. He talked about how the lawyers are just running circles around them. The problem is that this Supreme Court doesn't give a damn. The Supreme Court is, frankly, I call it the extreme court. They're doing the work of Republicans, and they're allowing them to move forward. And it is as if they don't even care about facts, don't care about precedent, don't care about the law. They're choosing to create their own law. They are judicial activists.
And they buy judicial activism from the time, right? I mean, that's what we hear. Don't be judicially active, And I think plaintiffs are saying this is a little different situation. They're saying that the legislature drew the map based on 2023 information, and also it was, drawn race. But I think you hit the nail on the head. That gets to the heart of my analysis. I think the problem is once you have a case like Calais coming down from the highest court in the land, the district court is going to feel it's bound to follow that decision, and it's probably going to buy some of Alabama's arguments that are, saying basically the current map should be, the proposed map should be used. I think that's what's going to happen functionally. Now, whether this is really a different situation, I don't know enough of the evidence every way that it differs, but I'm in court all the time. I'm in front of judges all the time. And frankly, one thing about enough, a lot of times judges are reticent to do what they think is stepping out on a limb. So if they think the Supreme Court has spoken, and if the judge is disinclined to go with the plaintiffs, this allows the judge to say, well, the Supreme Court resolved this issue. I no longer need to hear it. And I see that happen every day in cases that, you'll never learn about, right? They don't hit the public airways. But in a case like this, I suspect what will happen is the district court will do exactly that. They'll bind to Alabama's arguments, or at least listen to them more substantially in the wake of Calais. And I think that's a problem, especially to be able to distinguish it like this as the plaintiffs are arguing.
Candace, well, I hope this district court, who ruled before, rules in favor of these plaintiffs and tells the Supreme Court, y'all are wrong.
Well, precedent is often overturned. And that's how it happens. But it does happen when the culture shifts. It does happen when people speak up. It does happen when you come to court with the right legal arguments. And it also happens when the judges use their discretion in the way that they should, which is rightfully and forcefully in correspondence with whatever the Constitution says. But as you said, They don't care at this point. And as Matt said, you know what? They have an easy out. We have an easy out because we're just going to defer to Calais and what happened with the United States Supreme Court already. So it's kind of like this block that we're in. And until these attorneys can come up with the right specific argument to talk about these maps in a legally reasonable way that is sound, you know, that's the only way you're going to do it. But then again, you add the discretion of a judge, you add the political disposition of a judge, and you add the Supreme Court, which is, as we know, Republican leaning, and you kind of are at a dead end. But this is why you keep it going. You keep it going until you have the right case and the right time in order to have the change in the justice system in terms of what precedent says. We know that the Supreme Court takes cases according to what's going on in the algorithm and the culture, what is important to them. And this is what happens to be important to them at the time. And that was deciding Calais the way that it was. I think for my lifetime, I am going to see these judges act in this way unless something extreme happens, but we still keep it alive because, as you said, judges can overturn precedent.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland, you know, hopefully they're successful here. I'm not sure about that, but you know, this just, you know, you just have to take a step back and say, well, if the black vote doesn't matter, if black political power is irrelevant, why are these people working so hard to break up black districts? Why are they working so hard to reduce the power of the black vote? You know, once again, they keep showing us that they fear the black vote more than we value it. And this ties directly into the fear of 2043 when white people will no longer be a majority population in this country. And they want to control the courts. They're restructuring the voting districts as well to prepare for that and nullify black political power as well as Latino political power.
Well, it is going to be an absolute battle, and trust me, it is going to continue. Let's talk about what's happening in Florida, where, man, it's getting real ugly there. So Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a longtime member of Congress, former chair of the Democratic National Committee, announced today that she is running for a congressional seat in the 20th Congressional District. This was the video that she dropped today.
I've fought for the people of Broward County my whole adult life. You've always been able to count on me to deliver results for our community.
Debbie knows how to deliver results.
If you know Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you know that Debbie does not back down from a fight. She is a person that is for all people.
Debbie's always been there to fight for us, to stand up against all forms of hate, and make sure we're best represented in Congress.
And I waged these battles when our values were on the line, all while raising a family, beating cancer, and answering President Obama's call to lead our party.
Debbie has for many years been a strong ally of the LGBTQ community and the Hispanic communities.
Debbie has walked the walk.
She's able to get things done. And in a country where unity has become a real problem and that no one does that, she's a rare person.
Today, I'm announcing my candidacy for re-election in Congressional District 20. Because we cannot let Trump destroy Broward County's power.
Having somebody with that experience right now in this turbulent times is so important.
Republicans couldn't care less about lowering your health care, gas, or grocery bills. But I'll use all my seniority and clout in Washington to continue to make our lives more affordable and make Broward a safer, less expensive place to live, raise a family, and retire. Some people do a lot of talking. I work hard to deliver results. We can do this together.
Doesn't matter what the issue is, Debbie Wasserman Schultz delivers.
Her authenticity, her connection to the community.
She stands up for our country. She tells it like it is.
We need strength. We need experience, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz is that person.
She has humanity, she has experience, she has honor, and she has vision.
I'm telling you, folks, get her elected. We do not want to lose Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Okay, so here's the problem, okay? Her district was eliminated when the Republicans gerrymandered the maps, okay? So she's running in a majority black district. Now, this has led to a whole lot of pissed off folks. In fact, the Florida Legislative Black Caucus dropped this statement today. The Florida Legislative Black Caucus is compelled to address Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz's recent announcement regarding her candidacy in Florida's Congressional District 20, a district with a rich history of black representation. For generations, black Floridians have fought tirelessly for the right to vote and for that vote to result in meaningful representation. This fight has not been easy, marked by sacrifice, organizing, and the courage to overcome various forms of racial discrimination and exclusion. Today, as we face a crucial juncture in our history, we must reaffirm our commitment to protecting the political power of black communities. With only 2 remaining black access congressional districts in Florida, the significance of representation in District 20 cannot be overstated. This district was established to remedy decades of racial exclusion and to ensure that black communities have the opportunity to elect leaders who truly reflect their experiences and needs. Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz's decision to pursue re-election in this historically black district, despite explicit requests from the black community to seek candidacy in a neighboring district, is disheartening. Prior to her announcement, Chair of the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, Representative Felicia Robinson, sought a meeting to discuss these pressing concerns. The absence of that dialogue demonstrates a lack of respect and engagement with the very constituents who are most affected by her candidacy. This is more than a political issue. It is a pressing voting rights and civil rights issue. The residents of District 20 deserve transparency, engagement, and a genuine commitment to listening. Building trust with black leaders and constituents should be paramount for anyone seeking to represent a majority black district. Unfortunately, the actions taken by Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz suggest a failure to prioritize these essential values, perpetuating a narrative of performative allyship rather than meaningful connection. As the Florida Legislative Black Caucus, we are dedicated to preserving the hard-fought gains made in securing voting rights and representation for black Floridians. We will continue our efforts to educate communities about the importance of fair representation and to advocate for the protection of black access districts. We call on all Floridians to stay informed, engaged, and committed to the principles of fair representation and equal political opportunity. Preserving black political voice is not only about honoring our history, it is about ensuring a future where every voice is heard and valued. Michael, is she right or wrong?
Oh, I think she's. Is who right or wrong? From the statement, I think the statement is.
I
right.
said she, Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Okay. Okay. No, I disagree with Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and I think it. So let's look at what happened in Tennessee, Roland. The district was the only black majority district was redrawn, represented by Representative Cohen, and he decided not to run for re-election. Okay, so I think she should do the same thing here. This should be the African Americans should be able to choose a representative, and I would say an African American representative. I think she should do the same thing and not run. And looking at the piece from the New York Times, you know, everybody from black Democrats to Uncle Luke, Luther Campbell, are calling her out for this. Luther Campbell is quoted in the article from the New York Times as well. So this is another example of going back to your show yesterday and Greg Carr talking about using the Democratic Party as a delivery system. I totally agree with that. Agree with him on that. We have to use them as a tool and watch out for snakes like Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Candace.
You know what I say? Let her run. You know why? One, she has the right to run. Number two, this is exactly what the Republicans are going to say. That isn't fair. Oh, you can't use race to say anything about anybody who's running for a candidacy. They would not be 100% wrong. Blacks have the right to run in other districts, right? But they want to run in this 20th because it is advantageous for them and they're representing their people and the history of the people. What we need to learn from this, I think, perhaps in this, though we know she's got more money, she's got recognition. What do we do when someone runs? This will be a good test. to figure this out, because this is going to happen again. You just have to live in the state, right? From what I understand, Roland, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can run in any district that you want. In terms of the prerequisite of living in the state, that's all you need. She chose one that would be advantageous to her. There are several other African Americans that are running. Again, like I said, she's got more money, but let's see where the chips fall. And let us use this as kind of a roadmap as to what is to come in other districts, not just in Florida, but across the country, because this is what we are going to see pop up over and over again. What do you do when this happens? This actually is a good test case. Let's see. But to tell her flat out, I can make the argument on either side, but since you asked, is this fair for her? Was it right that she do this? For her, I would say, why not? She's not breaking any laws. Let's see the strength that the African American community has to see what we need to do in order to change the tide. We can't just talk about it. We have to be about it in terms of how this actually carries out. And what we do is going to make the difference, and other people are going to be watching this district.
Matt?
So I kind of agree with both Michael and Candace, and I think there's some things in the statement that indicate to me it's a larger issue than just where she decided to run. So I don't understand why Congresswoman Wasserman Schultz would choose not to have this dialogue, because it stands to reason, to Candace's point, if she's entitled to run wherever she wants to run, this is where she's chosen to run, she should go sit with the people that she knows are going to feel some kind of way about her running in that district, speak directly to them, and then if she still decides to run, they can't say she didn't meet with them. I think not meeting with them looks like there's something shady going on, and I think there was some language in there talking about performative allyship. This is precisely the kind of thing that looks performative when you invoke Mr. Obama's name, or President Obama's name, but instead you don't go sit down with the people that you know will be materially affected by you running in that district. However, by the same token, I don't put it past any politico to do what they can to ensure their political survival. And I think if you've been the Democratic Party chairman, it shouldn't really be a surprise to anyone that she's going to do whatever's in her best, perceived political interest. Whether she should do that, whether that's the correct thing, I guess, in terms of relationships and in terms of her time there in Florida politics, is a different strategic question, but it doesn't surprise me that she chose to do that. I think the umbrage is partially because she ran, but more so because she didn't go sit at the table and look them in their eye and tell them she was going to run. And I think she's entitled to run, but I also think, if you're truly about the mission of supporting Black people who are running and making sure that people have representation that looks like them, then maybe you have a moral duty to not run. But again, she's a politico, and I don't expect a politico to act really in anyone's best interest but their own. And I think this shows that this is what she thinks that is.
So more than half of the district, Black and Hispanic, although the Democratic, as the New York Times story says, the Democratic electorate, its district is mostly Black. Now, here's also the wrinkle. Most of this district had been represented by Congresswoman Sheila Sherfless McCormick. She, of course, resigned from office after she was about to be expelled as a result of being indicted on a criminal charge of embezzling $5 million in federal disaster aid. Now, there are a number, as I said, there are a number of African Americans who are running for this particular seat. And what you have heard from people say, listen, this is about why not go somewhere else? Why not go to one of those competing districts? And this is really the challenge that you're going to see. In a moment, we're going to hear from Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, who had his district gerrymandered. He made it clear he is going to run in another seat. In Memphis, when they got rid of that district, Congressman Steve Cohen announced he was going to retire as opposed to run for one of the other districts in South Carolina. They're looking to get rid of Congressman Jim Clyburn's seat. He says no matter what they do, he is going to run. And so this here is an issue that they want to see. I remember in Texas when the Republicans did their gerrymander back in 2003, they targeted white Democrats and they wiped out the district of Congressman Martin Frost. And also in Houston, they created another Black district. That district was eventually, that particular seat was originally won by Congressman Al Green. And the whole goal was to force white incumbents to run against a Black candidate. So this is also part of this whole game that the Republicans are looking to do by pitting white white Democrats against black Democrats, and that's what's going on here. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in Florida moving forward when it comes to this particular seat. Hold tight 1 second. We're going to go to a break. We come back more on Roland Martin Unfiltered. But before I go, let me ask you this question. If you're on Medicare or about to be, the system is not set up to work for you. Too much fine print, too many plans, and too many people making money off of your confusion. And look, we're used to this. We're no stranger to systems that don't have our best interests at heart. But we don't have to accept it when it comes to Medicare. That's why I'm telling you about Chapter. Their advisors are independent and honest. In fact, they're the only Medicare advisors that compare every plan nationwide. And they're focused on one thing, what actually works for you. If there's a better plan out there, they'll find it for you. If you're already in the right one, they'll tell you that's the good one to stay in. No games. Just last year, people who switched from Chapter saved an average of $1,100. Let me say it again. They save an average of $1,100. Folks, all it takes is 20 minutes, and you'll talk with a real person. It is completely free. So give Chapter a call at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. All right, folks, don't forget, if you want to support us here, Roland Martin Unfiltered, join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to give via Cash App, use a Stripe QR code to see it right here. If you're listening, go to blackstarnetwork.com. That's also for credit cards, checks, and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. If y'all, and again, I'm sitting here, y'all, with your checks. Yes, I'm having to see, y'all can see right here, I'm signing the back of them because I got to do a mobile deposit. So if y'all see checks and money orders, I'm sitting here doing it, literally doing the show. If y'all want to support us, checks and money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 2003 70196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle. Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Back in a moment.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
A decade of love, joy, and power. Black Voters Matter is 10 years old, and we are just getting started. This is love with a purpose. This is Black joy in motion. This is unstoppable power. Across campuses, neighborhoods, and back roads. Let's go! We show up, not just to vote, but to be seen, to be heard, to belong. We ride together, we organize together. We remind each other that our voices matter, because they always have. Black Voters Matter is about more than ballots. It's about housing and healthcare, clean water and living wages, education, reproductive freedom, and dignity. It's about turning pain into action, turning belief into movement, turning community into power. We don't wait to be invited. We bring the energy. We bring the love. We bring the people. Because when Black communities come together, we don't just survive, we thrive. This is how change happens. This is how history moves. We organize, we build, we win.
What's up? It's Talib Kweli. I'm CEO. This is the Black Star Network.
You know, it's quite interesting that a lot of attention has been focused in the last several days over the NAACP's call for black athletes and others who attend certain schools in certain states to not go to those schools and go to the others. There are a lot of people who've been commenting on social media saying, oh my God, this is not right. It's unfair to those young men. We should not be asking young people to do these things. And I don't really understand the argument. I've heard some people talk about, we need to allow them to secure the bag. And I get it. I get it when we're talking about millions of dollars. But one of my problems with this secure the bag generation is that, what do you stand for? If it's time to fight for something, what do you fight for? So let me think about the Black Freedom Movement for a second. When I think about the Black Freedom Movement, we got to remind people, it was a lot of 18, 19-year-old people. Many of them who were expelled from colleges, including HBCUs, for joining the Black Freedom Movement. What would the Black Freedom Movement have looked like if folks said to young people, hey, no. Y'all need to stay in college. You need to get your education. Don't want to mess up your future. No, don't do that. Do I need to remind people in Birmingham that all of Dr. King's advisors were dead set against James Bevel, who was organizing the children from being involved in the movement? But what happened? The adults kept getting arrested and then kept getting arrested. And he was training the young folks. The young folks were clamoring to be involved in the movement. They were at one point climbing out of the windows and trying to escape through the doors out of the schools to go get trained. Then finally, Dr. King gave Bevel the nod and said, release the children. And it was when the children began to march and protest, and they sicked dogs on them, and they sicked fire hoses on them, and the world saw that. That's when people said, we got to do something. And then what happened? Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act. Those things actually happened. I think about the brother a few years ago, Mississippi State, who said, I ain't playing under that flag. I ain't doing it in Mississippi. Y'all, 10 days after that brother made that statement, you know what happened? They changed that flag. When I think about the folk who talk about secure the bag, it reminds me of a story that a woman told me. Her name was Carolyn Hunter. So what happened was, Carolyn Hunter, recent college graduate, she was a chemistry major, had gotten her a nice job at Polaroid. Well, one day there was a brother named Ken Williams, and Ken Williams was walking through the lobby, and he saw this photo book that Polaroid was selling. And it essentially was like a passport. But that passbook is what the racists in South Africa were forcing black folk to have to carry, and they could demand your papers on any notice. So Ken Williams saw that, and Ken Williams said, wait a minute, whoa, we're selling that? And so Ken Williams began to talk about that. Ken Williams began to raise a stink in Polaroid. But Polaroid didn't particularly like that. So Ken began to talk to other black employees, and they said, this is not right. This is not fair. This is 1970. So what happened was, that's Carolyn Hunter, recent college graduate. She said, you know what? Ken's right. So they began to protest the issue. They end up losing their job. Do you know what that created? Go to my iPad. That created what is known as the Polaroid Revolutionary Workers Movement. Do y'all know that, and we know this because Ron Dellums, when Mandela died, was on my TV One show, and the CBC wasn't aware of this divestment, of this issue. It was the Polaroid Revolutionary Workers Movement, y'all, that actually created the divestment campaign against South Africa. I was in New York City, this was 2009, and I was up late watching PBS, and I saw this story. And I'm looking at the picture, and I went, damn, that woman looked familiar. So I text this other sister, and I said, is that your mama? Unbeknownst to me, when I went to Martha's Vineyard, I actually stayed at the home of Carolyn Hunter. Carolyn Hunter later married Ken Williams. There was a golf tournament at Martha's Vineyard. Charles Ogletree had me come play in that was named after Ken Williams. Why am I saying this? Because it was young. Carolyn Hunter was a young woman who put her career on the line, and it wasn't about securing the bag. She cared about something bigger. What I think people are losing in this whole argument is that many of the players that NAACP is talking about are also being recruited by USC, UCLA, Big Ten schools, other schools across the country. So they're not saying don't play. They're saying don't play for these particular schools. And these are the schools. The NAACP, in their Out of Bounds campaign, they are targeting public universities in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. That's the schools they're targeting, those state schools. So it's very interesting to me to see people who are so mad, so upset, so angry, calling the NAACP out, y'all wrong for doing this, and those young people, look at all the money they could make. So is that what we've reduced this to? We've reduced the fight for civil rights and voting rights and equal protection to what a handful of black people can earn. That tells me all I need to know about where this generation stands when it comes to fighting on behalf of black people. Let my panel get to weigh in. I'll start with you, Candace.
Yeah, being economically sound and securing the bag really is just an illusion. I mean, you're still going to get stopped by the police. The Supreme Court is still going to gut the Voting Rights Act. It just means that when you're a plaintiff in your case to try to change the law, you're going to be able to wear a better suit. You will look better. When we think of Althea Gibson, Muhammad Ali, Bill Russell, so many people, they made and stood their ground to make a difference that they knew would happen because of those who came before them. It doesn't matter the age. And like you said, we're not saying don't go to school, but choose wisely and know that you have the power in order to do what you can do, and know that in that $20 billion industry, when you talk about, college sports, it goes a long way when you talk with your money. That's how people listen. That is the one of the great equalizers in terms of being recognized and how people see you in this world. And if they're going to secure the bag, secure it at the right school. That's all folks are saying. Just secure it at the right school. You have the right, you have your own power and volition to make a better decision than the one that you were going to make at the school that, you know, doesn't support the cause. And people at that age also need to understand and recognize their power. I think that we treat young people like they're young, but like you said, the people that came before us, they were very young. This documentary, the mighty movement. Anyway, folks can Google it, but it talks about the Children's March. It talks about the children involved in the civil rights era. Powerful, powerful, powerful. Age is nothing but a number. And in terms of the numbers, in terms of securing those bags too, nothing but a number too. The Supreme Court's going to work the way that they want unless people stand up.
Michael?
Roland, you know, I'm glad you brought this up because I did a video a couple of nights ago about this. And I think the same problem with this and people commenting on social media, making these insane comments, is the same problem that we had with the Target boycott. People don't read shit. I don't think people actually read the press release from the NAACP because when you read the press release, it actually encourages these athletes to consider going to HBCUs and playing for HBCUs. It doesn't tell them don't play at all, okay? And it also calls on fans, alumni, donors, consumers, etc., to redirect dollars to HBCUs, purchase tickets for HBCU games, support HBCUs, etc. So this is a form of economic withdrawal, okay? And too many of our people have gotten too comfortable. Let's just tell the truth. Too many of our people have gotten too comfortable, don't really understand sacrifice, haven't studied the civil rights movement, okay? Because when we look at economic boycotts, not just the Montgomery bus boycott, but we look at boycotts in Birmingham, Alabama. We look at Gomillion versus Lightfoot and the boycotts at Tuskegee, Alabama. We realized that we had to redirect our dollars somewhere else also. And there was some sacrifice involved. So if people actually read the entire NAACP press release, I think they'll get a totally different impression than what's circulating on social media. But once again, this is why you have to read, but this is something very powerful. This is something we should all participate in, and we should have done something like this to get behind Colin Kaepernick. We should have stopped watching NFL games, stop purchasing the jerseys, stop purchasing the tickets, okay? And leveraged our economics to enforce our political agenda. This is exactly what the NAACP is talking about here. How you can have Negroes when we are being politically lynched. How you can have Negroes want to sacrifice short-term gain for long-term freedom. I don't understand something like that.
The thing for me, Matt, is this here. It would be great if, let's say, the ESPN top 300 said, yo, we out. But let's say 5 or 10 chose to do so. The whole point of this is to create a reaction among these lawmakers. I go back to Mississippi State. I go back to what happened when that brother said, you know what? I'm uncomfortable playing under this flag. And when he tweeted that, this was one brother. This was one black man. This was one football player. When that brother said, you know what, yeah, I ain't comfortable doing this. You know what happened, Matt? Several other players say, you know what, bro? I'm uncomfortable too. And you know what then happened? Those white coaches. And white coaches were like, I better get behind my player. Then the white coaches went to them white conservative lawmakers and they said, say, man, I need y'all to know this gonna be a problem. Because the white coaches saw what was down the line. The white coaches saw that if one black ball player caused 5 or 6 others to say, no, we ain't playing underneath that flag, they were not gonna be able to recruit black ball players. Matt, in 10 days, I need people watching and listening to understand the NAACP for decades had been trying to get that Confederate emblem off of the Mississippi state flag. The NAACP launched boycotts in Mississippi and South Carolina, and they kept the NCAA from holding various championships in those states, meaning that if the South Carolina or the Mississippi State or the Ole Miss softball team, volleyball team, swim team, golf team, or whatever, if they were ineligible from hosting regional events because the NCAA said, we're gonna honor the NAACP boycott. Then white lawmakers are like, yeah, we don't give a damn. But when that black running back said, yeah, I ain't down with this, them white boys changed that flag in 10 days. Tate Reeves was talking trash. We ain't changing nothing. 10 days later, signing that law. So people need to understand that the actions of a few black ball players could actually lead to massive change. I don't understand why people act like that didn't happen, Matt.
This is a more nuanced conversation than, short time allows, but I think there's several things that play into this. I don't think you're wrong. I think that's an extraordinary example of how that can cascade and you can have people following suit and you can inspire change. But I think several things. First, I think collegiate athletics at this level is per se exploitative. I've always thought it's problematic that people have any objection to NIL money because they couch it as though there's some kind of loyalty that's owed to these teams. But the University of Texas and Texas A&M University make way more money than any of these individuals ever do, and it's just per se exploitative. I tell you that to say this. I think it shouldn't surprise anyone that within that system, people are acting in their own self-interest. And I think in order for this to work, there are a couple things that haven't been mentioned that have to be considered. The first thing is, I think it would require players en masse to not go to these schools. Because to your point, I mean, you have an upper echelon of students or student athletes who are going to realistically go to the league and whatever, but you have a bunch of others who are not going to. Unless you have people deep in the depth charts not playing at some of those schools, I think those schools are going to still field teams, and it's not going to have the effect unless you have a real mass exodus to some other schools. But one of the things I think has to be addressed is you have to really talk about them going to independent HBCUs. I think they have to go to Howard or Hampton or somewhere that's not PV or Texas Southern, because if you think about it, even sending them to one of those schools still funnels money into the University of Texas system or the Texas A&M system, and then you just move it from one university to another university, but it's still benefiting the same entity that you take umbrage with. So I don't have any issues with what the NAACP is saying. I think it's the right stance. I think there's some necessary nuance to make it even more effective. And on top of that, the final thing that I think mediates this, that is a difficult part of this conversation, is for some of those students, the period of time where they can be a professional athlete is small. So I understand, at least conceptually, how people could have difficulty with saying, look, I don't want to miss my opportunity to go play in the league. I mean, that's a dream for a lot of these kids. It's not realistic for most of them, but for a lot of them, it is a dream. So I get how families would grapple with that part of it, but I think it comes down to the moral question. What is it worth? What is your individual, ascension worth as in respect to your entire people, right? And I think you're right. I think 18, 19-year-olds should be imbued with the sense of responsibility to their people to choose what is best for the people, even more so than themselves. But I also understand that's a very difficult conversation, especially if you have a realistic prospect of playing professional sports. And I think that's a tougher conversation than most of us will ever have to have because we aren't in that position. So I think those things make this a more difficult conversation. But I think if they're going to divest and there's a mass exodus to HBCUs, it has to be to independent HBCUs so you're not still enriching the systems that you're railing against.
Yeah, but they're very clear in terms of what this is. And they also are not just calling on the athletes as well. What they lay out here is right here. It says, get involved. Athletes and families, take the pledge. Fans and alumni, advocate with your dollars. Support HBCUs, amplify your advocacy. They say that if you withhold your money from these institutions when it comes to games and things along those lines, all of this here. I just think people need to just understand and learn. First of all, as Michael said, actually read so you actually understand what the whole agenda is here. But I do think too many people today are so selfish that everything is about, again, securing the bag. And that, for me, when I look at these responses, and here's the other thing that's if let's just say top 20 players. First of all, 1-2% going to the next level. I mean, we're not talking about a ton of people. You got a pretty good idea who's going to the next level. And the reality is, if you take your talents from Texas A&M, Texas, Alabama, and you choose to go to Ohio State, Michigan, and USC, it really ain't no different than when those same Jim Crow schools didn't recruit black ball players. Where did they go? Syracuse, Michigan, Ohio State, USC. When did Alabama start recruiting black ball players? When Bam Cunningham and USC came down and whooped their ass. And that's when them biggest went, we gonna have to go get us some of them. And they didn't say some of them. They used the N-word. It was them getting their asses whooped by black ball players that caused those racist ass Jim Crow schools to say, yeah, we gonna lose. We're gonna keep losing if we ain't got some of them on our team. So that's what they're saying. And what I'm arguing is that if 3, 4, 5, I'm telling you, that's all it's gonna take. If 3, 4, 5 are top athletes say, I ain't going, let me call the states. If they said, I'm not going to any of these schools in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas, I can guarantee you those white Republican legislators are going to be shaking in their boots because, y'all, there's a big difference between having a whole football team of white boys and you going 7-6 and having a lot of brothers on your team and you going 10-1 or 9-2. That's a lot of millions, a lot of zeros you lose. Trust me, that would get their attention. Let me thank Matt, Candace, and Michael for being on today's show. I appreciate all three of y'all here. Y'all, congratulations. Matt now think he's grown because apparently Matt turned 40. So he can stop all that bullshit about how young he is. Oh, I'm the youngest. Oh, I'm young. It's sort of like the preacher. The preacher, once he turned 40, he can't preach youth revivals anymore. That's gone. That's gone. So, Matt, be happy you turned 40. Go and take your prostate exam and go and take your colon exam because you now in that category. Folks, the show is not over. Show is not over at all. I'm done with the panel. I just want to tell them thanks a lot. But we got a lot more left on the show. We've got Xavier Becerra is going to be on the show, running for governor of California. Coming up next, we're going to hear from Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. We also have my interview with Congressman Jim Clyburn, State Representative James Talarico. I may not get to all of those today. Also, I got some breaking news to share with you as well. So let's do this here right now. Let's hear, I talked to Congressman Emanuel Cleaver of Kansas City about Republicans gerrymandering his seat. And so here's our conversation. Congressman Cleaver, glad to have you here. Bottom line is this here. You are one of the victims of the Republicans' racial gerrymandering. In Missouri, they wiped out your congressional seat in the Kansas City area. Just your thoughts on what is happening after Donald Trump has mandated that Texas Republicans get him 5 seats.
Well, after that, after going to Texas, the president then zeroed in on Governor Kehoe up in Missouri where I live, and Kansas City in particular, that I represent in Congress and represented the city as its mayor for 8 years. And they were told to do a special session, which they did immediately at the request of the governor. And the only thing on the agenda for the recess elimination was the 5th Congressional District. Let's figure out how we can take that district without jeopardizing any of the non-African-American districts. There are 2 in our state, St. Louis, represented by Wesley Bell, used to be represented by Lacey Clay, and before that, his dad. And then, of course, Kansas City, Missouri, which is not a majority Black district. It has never been that way. We have probably 18 to 20% African American in the district. But what they've done is it's taken the 5th district all the way out into the Ozarks and Missouri and all the way near the University of Missouri. They didn't go too close because they didn't want the students there to be able to vote for me. You get not only at MU, but we have a large number of African-American students at Lincoln University, which is also nearby. So they took great care to make sure that none of those students who tend to vote for liberal candidates and African-Americans, it doesn't matter with them, a lot less than their parents and grandparents. And so they did what they wanted, which was to come in and do it, and the Missouri General Assembly approved it. And I think it's horrible. It's in some cases bigoted. I think that they are trying to do illegally and immorally, from my vantage point, what they could not do in terms of pure politics. They had not been able to move me at all from the seat I've held for 20 years, even though they went after it every 2 years. And so they're going to have to win it again, because we're clearly not going to lay down and let them just take the seat. If that's what they're expecting, as Jim Clyburn and I talked about the day before yesterday, if they're expecting that in Kansas City, maybe they're expecting that in South Carolina, but that's not what they're going to get.
To that particular point there, what we often see is when these actions are taking, candidates say, oh, I'm not going to run. And I've never understood that. I've always believed that, all right, you change the district. I would rather go down fighting than to voluntarily give up. And I say, man, go to those new voters, make the appeal, and say and challenge whoever's running to present an agenda.
Yeah, Jim Clyburn and I both that's exactly what we're going to do. And I reminded one of my colleagues that Jesse Jackson came to Missouri and tried desperately to get people, when he was running for president, to zero in on him as a candidate. And he did get their attention. And farmers in Missouri were actually involved in a 2 or 3 mile caravan coming from one of the rural areas into Kansas City. And they were in their tractors and trucks and pickups, led by Jesse Lewis Jackson. And so we know that if we talk about the issues and support the issues that they're interested in, that they're going to listen. And I think it's just a pity that some people are not going to fight. I have a colleague from the state of Tennessee who just said, I'm out. I think he has represented his district involving Memphis quite well, with somewhere close to a 98% voting record with the NAACP, Urban League, and organized labor. I mean, you don't get too much better than that, no matter what your color. So what you just spoke to me a few moments ago is exactly where I am. I can't speak for Jim Clyburn, but I can tell you that that's exactly where he is.
This really is a moment that requires fighters. What we're seeing is the largest attack on Black political power since Reconstruction, and I just fundamentally believe that this is a moment where people are looking for folks who are going to fight, who are going to do battle, and also, when we were there in Montgomery, broadcasting the kickoff there for Freedom Summer 2026, Freedom Fall, and this really is the moment for Black voters across Missouri, definitely Black voters in Kansas City, across Missouri, across the South in this country, to have the largest Black voter mobilization since the 1965 Voting Rights Act, because what these folks are trying to implement is not just a Republican agenda. They are trying to implement a massive anti-Black agenda.
Yes, no question about it. And I think they're proud of themselves. They've been waiting for an opportunity like this. And I think we are going to have, I'm predicting now, one of the largest turnouts in Missouri history. And we may have the same thing in some of the other districts, in Louisiana, South Carolina, very likely in Virginia. I mean, we're going to see people now resorting to the kinds of things we did when I grew up in SCLC during the 1970s. And that is people went out and stood in the cold or the rain, whatever they had to do to vote. And I think we're going to see that. What my experience is that people are angry. And the poll we took in Missouri shows that neither whites nor Republicans, Democrats, vegetarians, pescatarians, everybody in the state of Missouri in large numbers oppose the mid-decade redistricting. They think it's unfair and it's not right. And we're going to have a turnout. My goal would be to come on the Roland Martin show and talk to you about this huge turnout that we had after the election, because I think things are coming together. A large number of the ministers and now the CBC are asking Black athletes not to sign letters of intent to go to the SEC schools. They can go to, the Big Ten, go to Michigan State, USC, Oregon, some football powerhouses. But if you look at the SEC schools, and then you look at where the attempt is being made to silence Black elected officials, there's one and the same. LSU, Auburn, Alabama, Mississippi, Florida, and it goes actually over into Texas. That's not SEC necessarily, but they're saying don't go there. And we're having athletes responding now to the call by the minority leaders, Hakeem Jeffries. When we had our press conference, we had athletes from Washington, D.C. standing with us who are at Georgetown and who are at Maryland. They're saying we're going to join in allegiance with our brothers and sisters who live in the SEC area. There are a lot of other schools, East Coast, West Coast, North Coast, where people can go. And I think this giant may have been awakened at a level that I haven't seen since the 1970s.
What specifically are you and your campaign going to do to really target those 18 to 39? When I look at the exit polls out of Georgia, they represented 9% of folks who voted. Millennials, Gen Z are the largest demographic. They're larger than baby boomers. They're larger than Gen X. And they really have got to be touched and activated, because when we talk about these policies, look, they're the ones who are going to be impacted, okay? And not you, not me. And so they really need to be engaged. And I've said that when it comes to black turnout, the baseline, the bottom, the minimum should be 70% of eligible black voters. We cannot get to that relying just on folks who are 40 plus. It really, especially 65 plus, and those folks 50 to 64. It is going to require black voters 18 to 39 to turn out in big numbers.
Yeah, my children would agree with you 100% and more. In fact, they had a conversation with me about that this past week, and they did say to me, they said, "Look, your online presence has to change. This is not going to be the 50-year-olds upward in this race who are going to pick the next member of Congress." And they said it's going to be us. And I think they're absolutely right. And so we're in the process right now of looking at and trying to figure out how to do this at the optimum level. Do online with an online presence? The day is over where you run ads on television. That's just not where they are. My kids don't watch. I do the evening news, or they've not in large numbers watching Meet the Press and the Sunday morning elite talk shows. I mean, they're online. They don't take the newspapers anymore. They get their news from online. And so you're absolutely right. And I've just begun to talk to young people with whom I've been connected, people like you that like Angela Rye, and who has a podcast, and she's telling me the same thing. You need to go elsewhere and campaign, which is what we're getting organized to do right now.
Well, this is going to be a critical year. And again, for African Americans, whether we're talking about Missouri, Texas, whether we're talking about, obviously, southern states, we see what they've done to Don Davis's district in North Carolina, obviously Alabama, wiping out the seat in Tennessee, what they're doing in Florida. And so what I continually say to African Americans, the only response that we have is to have an overwhelming presence at the ballot box and destroy those folks who are trying to destroy black institutions.
You just said it better than I could, Reverend.
Well, good luck in the campaign, and we certainly appreciate you joining us, Brad. Thanks a lot.
Good to be with you. Blessings.
Folks, going to a quick break. We come back, we'll talk with one of the candidates running for governor of California. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Swain Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
California governor's race seems to be turning into a three-way fight. Latest tracking poll commissioned by the California Democratic Party, conducted from May 14th through 16th, has GOP candidate Steve Hilton and Democratic candidate and former state attorney general and Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra tied for the lead, each with 22% of the vote. Coming in third is billionaire Tom Steyer at 15%. California has a jungle primary, meaning it's not Republican primary, Democratic primary. It's the top two vote getters. And joining us right now is Xavier Becerra. Glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It has been topsy-turvy. Early on, former Congresswoman Katie Porter was in the lead. Then, of course, you had former Congressman Eric Swalwell. Then all of a sudden, allegations hit him. He has to drop out. A lot of people have been saying there's too many Democrats in the race. More folks should be dropping out. I think the Lieutenant Governor also or another candidate dropped out. So it's a whole lot going on. So how do you cut through all of that in order for you to land those top two spots?
So, Roland, first, thanks for having me. By the way, X like an H in my case, so Javier. But
Javier, gotcha.
The way
That's
you do it,
yeah.
And the way you do it is by giving people the confidence that you actually know what you're going to do, because with all the crises that we're facing, whether it's the affordability crises that everyone's facing back home, or it's the man-made crises coming out of Washington, D.C., you want someone who won't need training wheels the moment they walk into the governor's office. And I've had an opportunity, whether it's the former Secretary of Health and Human Services during the COVID pandemic, or as the Attorney General for California when Trump was president the first time, or as a member of Congress for 24 years. I've been there, I've done that, and I can say that I can get us out of crisis. So I think people are hearing that, it sticks, and I think that's why I was able to jump up in the polls and now lead in the polls.
Obviously, affordability is the dominant issue in every political race across the country. There are some who say California, it is way too expensive. People are leaving the state. What can you do as governor to address that issue for California voters?
Yeah, that's job one, is to address the affordability crisis. So the legislature, fortunately, and our current Governor Newsom, they've worked hard to try to make it easier to build homes in California, to reduce the pressure, the demand, and therefore help reduce the price. That should help housing become more affordable. We have to make sure that we're continuing to provide health care to our population. As you know, Roland, when the Trump administration cut $1 trillion out of the healthcare system by gutting Medicaid, he makes it hard. In California, there are about 3 million Californians who are set to lose their health insurance coverage as a result of Donald Trump. We're not going to go there if I become governor. We're going to continue to provide health care, because it's penny wise, pound foolish to cut people off of having access to a pediatrician or a family doc, because ultimately they're going to get their health care. They're just going to go to the ER, the most expensive place to do health care at the end of the day. So we're going to do the things that keep California moving forward, make it more affordable. If you want to come to California, we want you. If you're already here, we want you to stay.
Housing also is a dominant issue as well, and we've seen the prices explode. If governor, how do you help spur, frankly, housing, but affordable housing in the state?
We have right now affordable housing units that are ready to go. They are shovel ready. They've passed through their permitting requirements. They have penciled out. The only thing missing is enough money to put shovel in ground. And so one of the things that I've said on this campaign is, in my first 100 days, I've already told some of the legislators in California that I'm going to be working with them to make sure that we help get these projects underway, shovel in ground, so people have confidence to know that we are actually going to build the units that we need for folks who need to have affordable housing available to them. That's one thing. Secondly, I'm going to boost these programs that already are in place. I just going to expand them, that make down payment assistance more possible for a lot of families, because most families in California, when they're renting, they're essentially paying a mortgage every month. It's just they're paying the mortgage for somebody else, the landlord. Why not pay it so you can own the place? And so if we can help with down payment assistance, because that's the only thing that most of these families lack, we'll be able to make them homeowners. And the most important thing, as you know about that, is that if you want to ever generate wealth, you need to start owning assets that appreciate in value. And that's typically your home. If you go paycheck to paycheck, living off of your income, what you earn every month, you're never going to have the wealth that you need to get ready for retirement. So I really want to boost home ownership in California so we can have families build wealth. And that's really crucial in the Black community, in the brown community, because too many of our families don't have the opportunity to own their own home.
You've got this one-time tax increase for billionaires. It's going to be on the ballot in November as well. And you've got a lot of billionaires who are mad and upset, threatening to leave the state. I mean, it is stunning to me to listen to the co-founders of Google. I mean, people with gobs and gobs and gobs of money. When these companies, when you look at the tax rate that they actually pay, it's virtually nothing. They don't give themselves salary. They live off of capital means. I mean, my God, like you're losing your mind over a 5% one-time tax?
Yeah, well, it's one of those things where if you've got it, you don't want to give it up. And tax policy, whether you're a billionaire or you're making minimum wage, nobody likes taxes. And so we have to recognize that.
Well, nobody likes taxes until they need something from the state. And so when they need roads and bridges and infrastructure, or when there's a natural disaster, it's amazing how they then would love some taxpayer money.
Yeah, it's like this conversation where people are saying we should suspend the gas tax. Well, then how are you going to fix the roads and retrofit the bridges and make sure your potholes are filled? You need the revenues to make that happen. And so you're right. If people understand that we pay taxes so we can have an infrastructure in our society. On this billionaire initiative, the difficulty, I think, is that it's a one-time deal. And we need to have tax policy. As I tell people, and I served on the Ways and Means Committee for 20 years. That's the tax writing committee in the House of Representatives. You need to have tax policy that is fair, that's predictable, and that's stable. And unfortunately, this initiative, I think, is going to ultimately have a difficult time because it's not predictable and it's not stable. It only is a one-time deal. Most of the money goes for healthcare, which is good, but I guarantee you, we need money for our schools. We need money to help build our homes. And so my suspicion is that it will have a difficult time once people look a little bit closer into it. But will we need to make sure if we need revenue, we get it from folks who aren't paying their fair share? Absolutely. And there's no doubt that billionaires are not paying their fair share. As you mentioned, Roland, chances are most billionaires are paying at a lower effective tax rate than that teacher, that firefighter, that nurse, that police officer. And no one who's making millions or billions should be paying less in effective tax rates than someone who's in one of those four professions.
Data centers have been talked about all around the country. And a lot of people don't like some of these data centers getting billions of dollars and millions of dollars in tax breaks from states and local governments. What is your position on tax breaks for data centers?
Well, I think data centers can be, California is home to the tech industry. California is home to AI, and California will continue to benefit from having AI. We have to do more to make sure we know where it's going to go and benefits the communities that are in California. And so if data centers are going to be located here, it should be because they are being good community partners, which means not only are they paying their fair share, but they should help a community build up its infrastructure, whether it's on the electricity, whether it's on the water. We want to make sure that if AI is coming to California, that it is doing more than just soaking up the energy it needs without doing its fair share to help the surrounding communities prosper as well. So we'll make sure that we continue to have tech, AI come to California, do right by California, and the industry will do well as well.
But how do you also protect water supply, electric costs? Those a lot have been the criticism we've heard from so many other places where people, there was a congressional hearing the other day, and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez held up bottles of extremely dirty water that has infected wells in one particular state.
Yeah, so that's why I said that if they're going to locate in California, they have to help us with our infrastructure, whether it's on the water side or whether it's on the electricity side. So when they come in, they will understand that they have to be complete and good community partners, which means that we won't have those circumstances where they're leaving dirty water. In fact, they will help us build out our water infrastructure. They will help us build out our grid and our electrical capacity. And if they're not willing to do that, then there are plenty of places they can locate. But having California benefit from the technology industry and AI industry is a good thing, so long as we work as partners to make sure everyone benefits from this. And I will say this, because I think most people understand this. California already is the 4th largest economy in the world. Just the state of California by itself. It ranks only behind the US overall, China, and Japan. And then after Japan, the biggest economic force in the world is the state of California. And part of that is because of the tech industry. And so we benefit from that, but we have to make sure the benefits of that go to all folks. But as we just finished talking about housing, there are too many families in California can't even afford to buy a house. And so we may be the 4th largest economy in the world with a lot of prosperity, but it's clearly not getting to enough people. That's what we got to change, because we want it to be that the 40 million people in California can all believe they're going to prosper from everything that all the assets that California brings to the table.
All right, then, Xavier Becerra, we certainly appreciate it. Good luck in this campaign. The primary is June 2nd.
June 2nd, coming soon.
All right. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Folks, when we talk about what's happening in this country, gerrymandering, huge issue. And I got a chance to catch up with Congressman Jim Clyburn of South Carolina. We talked about what is going on in his state and how MAGA Republicans are targeting him and wiping out his district. Here's our conversation. Congressman Clyburn, clearly the governor of South Carolina does not control his own state. Initially, Republicans, of course, joined with Democrats in not advancing the changing of the maps there. Then he decided to call a special session. And clearly, he is being controlled by 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Well, I was very disappointed with the governor's decision. Like so many others in South Carolina, I was led to believe that he would leave it up to the legislature to work its will. And I think that occurred when the Senate decided not to go forward with the midterm redistricting, not because of anything political, but because 2 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled that what had taken place in South Carolina after the last redistricting was in fact constitutional, and that the congressional districts were not racially drawn. But it seemed as if someone in the White House more concerned about the individual than the district itself. So I suspect that I have a few people over in the White House who I would not call close friends.
Well, that's no doubt. And what we're seeing is these attacks take place on Black political power all across the South. We saw what happened in Tennessee, in Alabama, Mississippi. The leader of the Democratic Party of Mississippi estimates that 24 Black districts on the state level could be impacted. And so this Louisiana versus Calais decision, Supreme Court decided, could have devastating impact. And what I keep telling people, it's not just losing Black political representation. It's also going to lead to the loss of billions of dollars that flow back to the Black community through public projects.
Absolutely. One of the things that I find surprising is the number of Southerners. I mean, not necessarily Black Southerners, but Southerners who seem not to realize that they are being used in a very, I would say, not complimentary way. When you have the resources in your states being misused and your states being denied, somebody's going to benefit from that. And if you look at just in my case, the congressional district that I represent, it's about 45% African American. Now, I did see, according to the census, it's only 43% white, 44% black. And that means that those of us who are there, who have developed a certain amount of seniority and cachet and presence here in the Congress, are able to do things in the state that a brand new person would not be able to do. And as one white Republican said to me, who are we going to replace you with? Somebody who can't find the room where the Transportation Committee meets when you're sitting there as a ranking member, and if Democrats were to take back the House, which so many people are predicting will occur, then the chairmanship of that Transportation HUD Committee that I will have will go to another state, and it would not be a southern state. And this is the kind of stuff that I would hope that these southern legislators would take a look at. They would much rather deny their state the resources that could come from a Benny Thompson or from some others, Bobby Scott in chair of the Education Committee, and many, many other subcommittee chairs will be lost to these southern states. And the beneficiaries of that loss are going to be non-southern states. So I just hate to see this leadership of my state being so short-sighted with this. This is something that seemed not to be all that important to them, so long as they can get rid of the color.
And that's exactly what this is. I mean, this is the absolute targeting of African Americans. This Supreme Court, what I call this extreme court, they are allowing it. Their decision making, to me, is grossly disrespectful. It goes against their own precedent. In December, they said that it was too late to challenge or too late to impact the elections in Texas because the primary was in March. But Louisiana and Alabama had elections a week away, and they allowed them to make changes. And so, to be honest, it is clear that this extreme court is doing the work of the Republican Party. They are not nonpartisan. They are not independent. And their decision-making, their rulings speak clearly to that.
Well, you know, I started saying back when Citizens United was first declared, when that decision came down, I said at the time that this is the kind of decision that was sitting right alongside Dred Scott as being among the worst decisions ever handed down by the Supreme Court. Now, a lot of people look at me like I was crazy. And in fact, somebody asked me, how could you equate the two? I said, I'm not doing that in a racial way. I'm saying how bad the decision is. When you make a decision, as you do in Citizens United, and equate a corporation with a human being, what you've just done is dilute the impact of individuals that make up the government. We the people. It's not that we the corporations or the companies. we the people. And so what you've done is lessen the importance and the impact of the people, because the heads of the corporations will get the second bite out of the apple when we the people get only one. And I saw this because if you go into the case and look at what has happened, now you have unlimited contributions coming into campaigns from corporations. And these corporations are really impacting in a big way the result of these elections. And that's what you see when you have the President of the United States says, I oppose this person's reelection. And then all of a sudden, all of this dark money pours in there. Nobody knows where the money is coming from. All of that was allowed by Citizens United. And then that decision was followed by Shelby v. Holder when the Supreme Court said there's no more need for pre-clearance, which is allowed under Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. It has outlived its usefulness. And so they got rid of Section 5. Another step on this road to what I call Jim Crow 2.0. Now, when the court issued that, go back and look at what Roberts said. He said, we know this may be, or something may happen. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but all you got to look at the decision, that something may happen under this pre-clearance rule that we get rid of, but Section 2 is still sitting there, which will allow for a right of action if someone is injured under the absence of pre-clearance. Then they come up with this decision and get rid of Section 2. So they were taking these steps in order to get to where they want to go, and this seems to be the last step on this journey. But I suspect they'll find another one to not just deny, but to suppress. Because there's one thing to make it difficult to be able to vote, but it's something else when you start making decisions to weigh the voting. I can see the Supreme Court getting to a point where one community's vote will weigh more heavily than another community's vote, so long as you do it geographically and don't do it by race. It's almost like saying if you come from one neighborhood, you can get a mortgage to buy a house, to borrow the money that's necessary. But if you come from another neighborhood, you can't. It would be called redlining. You know, I chaired the Community Reinvestment Act Committee of what used to be CNS, Citizens Southern National Bank, and CNS Sovereign, two of the predecessor banks to what is now Bank of America. So I know about redlining. In our communities, will redline in order to provide loans. I can see that redlining can be used to determine political participation as well. And for anybody who says, oh, that won't happen, just look back at the history. Now, as you're aware, I wrote a book that was released last November talking about the first 8 African Americans that served in Congress from South Carolina before me. I'm the 9th, but there are 95 years between number 8 and number 9. How did that happen? That happened because the Supreme Court, starting with the slaughterhouse cases and coming right on down through history all the way up to Plessy versus Ferguson. What did that case stand for? Yes, under the Constitution, you've got rights. 13th Amendment freed you from slavery. 14th Amendment gave you equal protection to the laws. And the 15th Amendment gave you the right to vote. But the Supreme Court decided, yes, you can be separate and still be equal. Would that be like having on one side of the track or the other side of the track? Would the track separate you, but you equal on either side? That's the kind of reasoning the Supreme Court is now making. And in 1954, if you read Brown v. Board of Education, the Supreme Court held, as Briggs v. Elliott did in his 1948 decision, that segregation, separate but equal, is inherently unequal. Inherently unequal. So when you have these combination of things, you can see that this Supreme Court is, and I've been saying this, I think that Justice Roberts, history will treat him the same way it's treated Roger Taney, who was the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that issued the opinion in Dred Scott. I know he didn't write the opinion, so for those people who said, well, Tanner was just the Chief Justice, but he didn't write the opinion. Well, or he wrote the opinion, but this Chief Justice did not write the opinion in collect. He's still the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he assigns which judge will write the opinion. So don't tell me he didn't write it because he just the person he assigned, in this case, Alito, wrote it. Well, same thing.
Well, you made that point about, in terms of them, speaking of black voters, how race cannot be used. But clearly, it's okay for white folks. I mean, what they are saying is, hey, we got no problem if you have 65, 70, 75% white districts. And then this whole notion that, that we have to protect the interests of white voters when they've never lacked representation.
Yeah, you know, that's so interesting because the congressional district that they had drawn me into, which was 45% black, that congressional district is now 75% white. But South Carolina itself is not 75% white. So it's okay for a district to be 75% white, but not okay for the district to be 45% black. That's how this works. And those are not dumb people on the Supreme Court. Man, I knew Clarence Thomas before he became a justice on the Supreme Court. And when I say I knew him, not just by name in the newspapers, I knew him. Sat down in the same rooms with him many, many times, was on the same programs with him when he was running EEOC. And before that, he was in the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Education. I know him. And so I say to people all the time, I don't speak on these kinds of things unless I know what I'm talking about. And I know Clarence Thomas.
One of the things that I have been saying, and I was in Montgomery on Saturday, we broadcast that National Day of Action that's going to kick off Freedom Summer as well as Freedom Fall 2026, is that the response from African Americans has to be a massive turnout akin to what we saw after the 1965 Voting Rights Act, that we cannot continue to have black turnout of 48, 52, 55, 57, 60%. We saw, and Chief Justice Roberts of the Extreme Court often cites, even Samuel Alito cites the black turnout in the election of Obama in 2008, 2012. And what I keep saying to black folks is our minimum number has to be 70% of eligible black voters. We have to have that type of massive turnout to beat back this anti-black agenda that Republicans represent on the state level as well as on the national level.
Well, I agree with you there, except that the question I have, what's wrong with that 30%? I shall never forget when Washington, the first African-American mayor of Chicago, Harold Washington. I remember in that election, there was a precinct in Chicago. I mean, the black community was so up for getting rid of the daily machine and the prospect of electing an African-American mayor. They got so up in one particular precinct. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 100% of the people, everybody that was registered in that precinct had voted. Nobody was left to vote. And this is a true story. Now, I wasn't there, but I read it. And
in fact, in the election of Harold Washington, the black voter turnout total was 85% of all eligible voters.
You're making my point. In this particular precinct, the precinct workers said, wait a minute, everybody has voted. They called down to the headquarters and said, can we go home? They said, no, you got to stay there because the law says the polling place must be open until a certain hour in the afternoon, so you got to keep it open. So they sat there, twiddled their thumbs until that hour arrived. The point I'm making is here, 30% to me not voting is still too many people not voting. Why should you take a pass? And let me tell you the impact of that. I think you're so like you are in most cases, because I can remember one decision you made which will haunt you for the rest of your life. But
don't hate, don't start. Don't start a little youth group you in. Don't start.
Okay, I know, but you get this right often, and you're right on the money here. The fact of the matter is, if you remember in 1994, when Newt Gingrich took over, became Speaker of the House, his contract on America, he unceremoniously kicked out of the speakership because he made a statement that I would never forget. And the black voters all over this country made him pay for that statement. I don't think most black people realize how and why Newt Gingrich got kicked out of the speakership. They can dress it up any way they want to. But when Newt Gingrich started making decisions like this White House is making, and when people called him on it, Newt Gingrich said something I want to remind the people today. He said, it's okay because our people will vote and their people won't. They will not turn out to vote. That's what he said. And when we turn out to vote and they lost votes in the House of Representatives, rather than pick them up in that off-year election, the leadership of the Republican Party kicked Newt Gingrich out of the speakership. Go back and look at it. That's what happened. And the same thing could happen in this off-year election if that 30% you're giving an excuse to, they turn out to.
Well, I continue to say that today's Republican Party is an existential threat to Black America. And I make it clear, I've never self-identified as a Republican, as a Democrat, as an independent. I'm Black. And my deal is, when I look at the issues, when I look at who wants to freeze Black people out of contracts, who wants to cut access to food? Who wants to cut access to Pell Grants? Who are making cuts to HBCUs? Who are attacking civil rights and voting rights? Look, it's very clear. Now, while that's being said, Democrats also had some work to do because there were too many Democrats who were complacent when we were talking about the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Too many people said, "Hey, don't pressure Biden, don't pressure Manchin, don't pressure the Sinema," and folks did not go hardcore. And though this is about us demanding what should happen to our agenda, but absolutely, when I look at Project 2025, there's absolutely nothing in that report that is positive for Black people. And so Black folks had better wake up. And main thing is this here, and I say this here, and there have been people that I forgot there's some white woman who they're touting who should lead the DNC. She's all about, I forgot her name. She's all about getting rid of folks like you and others saying y'all are too old. And I went after her on social media. And what I've said is, okay, 18, 39-year-olds, millennials, Gen Z, there are more of you than baby boomers and Gen X. But we just saw in Georgia, 9% of the turnout in Georgia in the primary were 18-39. 55% of those who voted, 65 plus. In the next group, 50-64. And so this generation, millennials and Gen Z, are going to have to not just complain on social media, not just talk about these things, but they are going to have to rise up and be as aggressive as possible in going to the polls. And you can't complain about folks being older who are in politicians if you're not turning out at the polls and voting.
Well, thank you so much for that. I'm glad to see that you are paying close attention to that, because I've been saying to people all the time, be careful about all of this. You're too old to be here, you're too old to be there. So you're not old enough to vote? Come on. You 25 and 30-year-olds say us 75 and 80-year-olds are too old to hold office, but we're the ones that are showing up to vote. And you're not showing up to vote. And when you get out and participate and show up at the polls, those of us who are older will be much more comfortable with your criticisms. I don't take criticism too well from people who tell me they measure their support by how many hits they get on social media. I ask the question all the time, are those people following you or are they trolling you? So you can't measure that. Are you more interested in getting a headline or do you want to make some headway? These are the things that we've got to get serious about because I'm telling you, these people are not playing. When you look at what these southern states did within hours of that decision, Florida moved. They didn't wait until the next day. They were just waiting on the decision to come down. And the same day the decision came down, they moved to start dismantling stuff. And if you think they're playing, why did the governor of South Carolina change his mind when he said he was not going to call a special session? And within hours of the House or the Senate, the state Senate, saying we are not going to redraw these districts now, within hours of that, the governor seems to have changed his mind. Why? Because these people are not playing. And we better stop fooling around, because our children and our grandchildren are going to find themselves living the same existence that our parents and grandparents lived. And if you think that's not possible, why is there 95 years between number 8 in South Carolina and yours truly number 9? Because the Supreme Court was not fooling around. and we were not allowed to participate back then. Now, you know, I always said that history has a way of repeating itself, but I also followed up by saying the results do not have to be the same. And so we are repeating the history that took place after the Civil War, after Reconstruction. Are we going to sit around and let the results be the same? Or are we going to use the benefit of that education our parents and grandparents toiled so mightily to allow us to get? Are we going to use that to fight back? Or are we going to just sit around and play around with tweeting and whatever else we may do with these devices and not show up at the polls? That number you just gave on the percentage of young people, I forgot what the age range was now, but it
was 18 to 39. 18 to 39 represented 9% of the total turnout. And when you look at any exit poll in this country, it's going to look the exact same way. And that is the people that vote the most are 65 plus. The second group, 50 to 64. The next group, 40 to 49. And the lowest group is the largest group. The lowest voting turnout group is the largest group by demographic. That's 18 to 39, and that's millennials and Gen Z. In Gen Alpha, they're born in 2010. Their first election is going to be 2028, and hopefully we see them turn out in numbers. But what I keep saying, that generation is going to have to accept the mantle and the call to step up. I see these people saying, oh, y'all shouldn't be asking players not to go to SEC schools. I got to remind them that civil rights workers were also 18 and 19 and 20. Many of them dropped out of college. A lot of them were kicked out of college because they chose to join the movement. So this idea that you're too young to get involved, I can't accept when that's why we had a Black freedom movement.
Well, you're exactly right about that. John Lewis and I met as 19-year-old college students. He was down there in Nashville. I was in Orangeburg, South Carolina. We met on the campus of Morehouse College in October 1960. Both of us were 19 years old. And I had already spent some time in jail when I got there. And so that's why I just, I listen and I do what I can. I couldn't get down to Selma on last Saturday. I explained to the people who were hosting it that I had my fellowship that I've been doing for 11 years now. 40 to 50 young people that meet quarterly in South Carolina, teaching them about South Carolina politics, about South Carolina's history, and I meet with them quarterly, and last Saturday was my meeting date with them. And so that's why I didn't show up down in Selma and Montgomery. That's what we've got to do. We've got to recognize that young people change things in the 60s. And young people can change things now, but you aren't going to do it if you only vote 9%, 18 to 39, only 9% of the vote, or there are 9% of them voted. I don't know what that is, but that's the stuff of which apartheid is made.
Absolutely. And at the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, there's a sign that says, I never forget it. It says, all I want for my 18th birthday is a voter registration card. That has to be the mentality of this generation. Congressman Clyburn, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, folks, time for Black Star Network headlines with Brittany Noble.
The Trump administration is losing another member Tulsi Gabbard told President Donald Trump of her decision to resign from her role as Director of National Intelligence during an Oval Office meeting today. Gabbard says she's stepping away from the administration to support her husband, Abraham Williams, who's battling what she described as an extremely rare form of bone cancer. Her departure is the fourth by a cabinet during Trump's second term. There have been rumblings that Gabbard would split with Trump after the president decided to strike Iran. Gabbard, a veteran and a former Democratic Congresswoman from Hawaii, is known for her opposition to foreign wars. This stance has put her in a difficult position, particularly since the U.S. joined Israel in launching attacks on Iran February 28th. Her final day in the position is expected to be June 30th. And a 7-year-old Black girl has died after police reported that she was tortured to death by 3 generations of white women in a Long Island home. The Suffolk County District Attorney's Office indicted 50-year-old Emily Kelly, her 75-year-old mother, Barbara Renner, and her 24-year-old daughter, Alyssa Seymour, with the death of Jordan Duncan. According to reports, Jordan was placed in the care of her father's fiance in December of 2024. The fiance gained full custody and guardianship in April of 2025. While the father was incarcerated, police state that Jordan was terrorized by all 3 women in the home between January and June of 2025, during which time she missed 40 days of school. In late December of 2025, Kelly called 911 to report that Jordan was in cardiac arrest. When the paramedics arrived, the child was unconscious, and she later died at the hospital. Prosecutors indicated that the autopsy found Jordan had suffered 90 stab wounds, and her cause of death was determined to be untreated infection from these wounds. Kelly's attorney claims that the wounds may have been self-inflicted. Kelly was indicted for murder, reckless endangerment, unlawful imprisonment, and endangering the welfare of a child. And Kelly's mother was indicted for manslaughter, while Kelly's daughter was indicted for unlawful imprisonment. An up-and-coming basketball star from Illinois had his life tragically cut short while riding in an Uber. 18-year-old Demarion Johnson, along with his Uber driver, Jansen Cho, were shot and killed on Chicago's Garfield Park neighborhood. The incident occurred around 8:30 p.m. May 7th when a gray SUV pulled alongside their vehicle and an occupant inside opened fire. Johnson was a talented high school basketball player who was on his way home from the gym and just days away from committing to a college on a full-ride scholarship. Cho, on the other hand, was a financial analyst who drove for Uber just to earn extra money. Devastated friends and family spoke about Johnson's positive impact and the heart-wrenching loss that has left a significant void in the lives of the people who knew him. According to the Chicago Police Department, exclusive surveillance footage captured the drive-through shooting, and although a person of interest was questioned, they were released without charges. No arrest has been made, and police are offering a reward for information that leads to an arrest in this case. A federal appeals court has dismissed a lawsuit filed by a former Colorado corrections officer who claimed that mandatory workplace diversity training created a hostile work environment for white employees. Now, the case, Young versus Colorado Department of Corrections, involved former corrections officer Joshua Young, who said that the department's equity, diversity, and inclusion training unfairly targeted white individuals and made him fearful of being accused of racism. Young claimed that the training included discussions on topics such as white supremacy, cultural appropriation, and racial power dynamics, which he believed discriminated against white employees. He also contended that the mandatory training caused him to hesitate in carrying out certain job responsibilities, including interactions with incarcerated individuals and prison visitors. However, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the lower court's dismissal of the case, concluding that a single workplace training program does not meet the high legal standard required to establish a hostile work environment under federal law. George Clinton, the legendary performer and founder of the Parliament Funkadelic, is suing Universal Music Group, accusing the company of withholding more than $1 million in unpaid royalties. The lawsuit claims UMG has frozen payment of Clinton's royalties for more than 3 years over a separate legal dispute tied to the estate of former Parliament keyboardist Bernie Worrell. Worrell's estate had claimed that Clinton had not properly paid him, the keyboardist, for some of their collaborations. But in the new court filings, Clinton says that UMG has frozen royalty payments for projects unconnected to the collaborations with Worrell. According to the court filings, Clinton is owed nearly $1 million in Parliament royalties, plus additional money connected to other projects, including work with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Clinton is seeking damages, release of the royalties, and a full accounting from UMG.
All right, folks, don't forget to check out The Breakdown Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern, right here on the Black Star Network. Again, The Breakdown Brittany Noble every day, noon Eastern on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, some sad news. Rapper Rob Bass has died at the age of 59. He'd been battling cancer. Of course, he is known for his song It Takes Two, as well as Joy and Pain. Of course, one of the legends in the game. And so many people have been sharing their thoughts and memories with regards to Rob Bass, again, passing away at the age of 59 years old due to cancer. Also, last week, basketball star Jason Collins, who became the first NBA player, active NBA player to come out as gay, he passed away. He had a brain tumor. Jason Collins spent a number of years in the NBA, and he, of course, played for several different teams. And when he came out, of course, that was a surprise to many. He died of, again, this brain tumor. Jason Collins, he was 47 years old. 47 years old, so condolences to Jason Collins as well. All right, folks. That is it for us. My interview with Representative James Talarico, we're going to run that on Tuesday's show. We don't have a show on Monday. It's Memorial Day. So we look forward to having that show on Tuesday. And we'll also, on Tuesday, we're paying tribute to a civil rights leader who has passed away. Once the family goes public with that, I'm already aware of it, but we're going to have a special tribute to him on Tuesday once we can make that publicly known. So I got the word about an hour ago. All right, folks, that is it for us. Several different things. If you want to support the work that we do, join our Bring the Funk fan club. You know how to reach us. If you want to contribute via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. Cash App, credit cards as well. Check some money order. Make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo, RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can also, of course, get our Black Star Network swag by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Shopblackstarnetwork.com to get our swag. If you want to support the Black-owned businesses, every product that you see here in the studio, every single product that you see here, there's a Black-owned company, and those products are available on our website. Again, shopblackstarnetwork.com. When you support those Black-owned businesses, then you support this show. So, you can support that. So go to our marketplace. Don't forget, download the app. Fan base, follow me at Roland S. Martin. And don't forget, we got a number of shows on this network you want to support. Every single day, The Breakdown with Brittany Noble right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So you got that. Then, of course, you also have, every Tuesday, Balanced Living with Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood Martin. Check that show out. Then, let's see, Other Side of Change. We got that show that drops on the network. That drops every Monday. Then, of course, we got the show with my man, Dr. Greg Carr. That show, The Black Table, drops every Friday. You also have, of course, Roland's Book Club. That drops every Friday as well. And I am headed to Houston this weekend. We got every Thursday. We got Second Opinion with Dr. Ebony Jade Hilton. That's our new health show. You can check that show out right here on the Black Star Network as well every Thursday. And so if you miss any of those shows, do me a favor. Go to our Black Star Network. Go to Roland Martin YouTube channel. That's first and foremost. Or you can, of course, go to our Black Star Network app. And so we look forward to that. And So there you go. So get all of that. Hey, don't forget, do me a favor this weekend. Remember our veterans. It is Memorial Day. That's taking place on Monday. A lot of our folks, of course, paid the ultimate sacrifice for this country. And so that's taking place. I'm going to be in Houston this weekend, headed to H-Town. The last of my nieces and nephews graduates from high school. That's right. My nephew, Christopher, my brother's son, my little man, he is graduating from high school on Sunday. So I will be in H-Town. That was a shot when we were at the Houston, Texas game on the sideline. And so looking forward to celebrating his graduation that's taking place on Sunday. So this is probably my second favorite photo of Chris. This is probably my favorite one. I had this, y'all know I got all these old funny little hats. And so I had this court gesture Houston Texans hat. And Chris decided he wanted to take my hat, so I had to buy a second one. And so we were traveling to the game, and we were in the back seat, and he was in the back seat, and I took this photo of my little man. So he turns 18 years old, first of all, and graduation's on Sunday. So looking forward to it. All right, y'all, that's it for us. I will see y'all Tuesday right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, as we do every Friday. We show you all the names of the people who donated to our show. And we appreciate more than 47,000 people that contribute to our show. And so we appreciate all that they have done. And don't forget, those of you who are looking to save on Medicaid, do me a favor, call the folks at Chapter. Call the folks at Chapter at 724-264-8281, 724-264-8281. Again, the number is 724-264-8281. That's it. I'll see y'all on Tuesday. Holla! it.